Hello, I'm Peggy O'Neill. Welcome to today's Facebook Live. Our topic today is how can we work with unconditional acceptance and allowing of each other? Before we start, again, welcome to our Facebook Live today. This group is answering the call. I founded it, and it's based on the opportunity for us to answer that call, that sense of longing, something's missing, that's inviting us to look, and it's really inviting us to look within, to recognize that what we've been looking for is already here within us. And what is that we're looking for? Well, most of us, if we explored it a little bit, we're looking for happiness, peace, security, belonging, love, fulfillment, meaning. It's already here. And the opportunity then also is that we can live our lives that way and then build our relationships with that as the foundation. Our organizations, our teams, our community, the world with that as the foundation. Knowing that every person, if you ask them this question, and they did the same exploration I just offered, would answer the same thing. That we're all who we truly are is this love and peace and happiness. And therefore we can create our lives, relationships, communities, organizations with that as the foundation. So that's what we're doing here. Very glad you're here today. And Sharon, hi. Thanks for being here. And if anybody else is here live, please say hi. If you're watching this on replay, please put in hashtag replay. If you have any questions or comments, either while we're live or on replay, please post them and I will answer them. All right, so let's dive right in to how can we work with unconditional acceptance and allowing of each other. So I've been coaching people in organizations, either they own their own business, all the way to CEO of a Fortune 500 company, for about 35 years now. And what I've found over the years, of course, with organizations, there's a lot of control, right? A lot of control. We've got to have managers. We've got to get better at managing, better at leading, so we can be more productive and more efficient. And then if things get a little out of control, we impose rules, and so people become more obedient and less creative because they've got to obey the rules. So there's a strong foundation of we have to be in control. What's that based on? Fear, scarcity, insecurity. And so that keeps creating organizations and contexts and relationships and results based on that. So there's a lot of opportunity here for us in our just how our experience of life and work is, but also for organizations to be much more alive and creative and expansive if we would move to who we truly are, which is actually we're unconditionally accepting and allowing. So if we quit fearing that things will fall apart, if we accept and allow what is, we're going to look a little bit further at how do we do all of that. So we're going to discover that, in fact, you'll release resiliency, innovation, and flow, as well as psychological safety and high performance, how to be unconditionally accepting and allowing, and then how to release control and increase increase that people will be productive. People will be, more responsible. So we can release control, and actually people will be more responsible. I know. Doesn't seem like that's possible, does it? Wait, I've got to control them to be responsible. No, in actuality, they'll be more responsible when you try to control them less. So let's look. So, and I'll really come back and start with that. So I said that you'll release resiliency, innovation, and flow, as well as psychological safety and high performance by being accepting and allowing. So I've asked many managers over the years that are trying to be more controlling of people. How do I get them to do what I tell them to do? Well, if somebody told you what to do, how would you feel about that? Well, I wouldn't like it. Okay. And so why do we think the people you're trying to control and get them tell you what to do Why do you think they'd like it? Well, that's just what they're supposed to do because that's their job. Okay, but then we sit with it a little bit and it starting to sink in. They don't like it. They're resistant because they just want to control. And yet they realize, well, wait, I wouldn't want to be somebody telling me what to do either. So when we feel so in being allowing and accepting, what does that imply? That means I'm going to trust other people. I'm going to be open. I'm going to allow mistakes. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to be I'm not going to be overseeing them all the time. They're going to feel there's more space in themselves and their work. They're not feeling like somebody's watching them all the time, whether you literally are or not. That's how so many people feel at work, that they're being watched. And maybe today they are, but I'm not talking about all the AI and all that stuff. I'm talking about just in general. People know. People are watching them. How are they performing? Their job performance, job reviews, all of that stuff. So when we're more relaxed and we feel more free in our work, then we're just going to naturally, so what's resilience? Resilience is being able to turn things around, being able to shift gears. So it's just easier to do when we don't feel like we're being judged and everything's being written up all the time. And we're going to be more innovative because now we're more, we know that we have more freedom. And they're not being so controlled, which is a limiting, it's a constricting energy. And so they're going to be more innovative because they're going to realize that they can make mistakes. And then more flow, that just happens naturally with everything else that I'm saying, that when we feel like we're free to work, think about it, free, that's the flow. If we're not being judged, then we feel more relaxed, that's flow. When we're not worried all the time, oh, I wonder what they're going to say if I do this, or what if I make a mistake here, so they're not thinking those things, that's flow. So that also all of the above, I think, is clear that that's psychological safety. I mean, organizations that I've worked in that have gotten poor marks for psychological safety, and then after we work, the marks are better. People feel more safe. It's because they're doing this sort of thing. Everything we're saying here, that's why people don't feel safe, is because they're constantly feeling under pressure to do things perfectly, which no one will. And they don't like being ordered around. Nobody does. And all of that leads to high performance. Now, I will say this. Some people are good, and I happen to be in this category of, okay, whatever my boss tells me to do, I'm going to make sure I do it and do it as well as I can. And there's actually a downside to that, believe it or not. There's a downside. What's the downside? People like me can get real burned out. People like me can be not as open ourselves, can be ordering people around more, trying to get them to perform. So there's a downside to the people that actually are more accepting of people telling them what to do, because which is that we get burned out because we're always trying to make sure we're doing such a good job, and then we're more worried, we're more stressed, and so there's a downside even to the people who will do exactly what we tell them to do. All right, so how do we do that then? How do we shift to this unconditionally accepting and allowing when almost every organization is built around control and command and control? We've got to control and manage people. I'm not saying that there's no management. It's just a different context of management. It's helping people be the best they can be, to produce the best results they can. That's the focus instead of controlling them. So how do we be unconditionally accepting and allowing? Well, remember who we truly are. Who we truly are is consciousness, or the universe, awareness, source, infinite intelligence. And when we relax the focus of attention and sink back into the awareness we are, we don't focus on thoughts or feelings or what we're trying to get done. We relax the focus of attention and feel the openness and allowing that we are. Then that's, and it's, and then, and so another metaphor that goes with that, it's like the space in the room that you're in right now. The space in the room doesn't care what's going on in the room. It's not telling people how to do it, not to do it, to leave if they're not doing well, to stay if they're doing great. So we really are that. We've just been conditioned to believe that we need to control, and that we're different from the open, allowing space that we are. And so being open and allowing just means remembering that and going to the experience of being open and allowing. Again, it doesn't mean that you allow unacceptable behavior, but it's done from a place of knowing that that person's behavior is not who they are. Their behavior is not who they are. So it's not a free-for-all with behavior either, but it's a context of allowing people to be who they are, and things happen. They don't always turn out great. And by unconditionally accepting and allowing, what I've said what I was describing a minute ago, that unconditional means that I'm not judging the person because of their results. I might be judging the results, if they weren't effective or could improve, that sort of thing. And then how to release control and increase people being responsible. Well, part of it is being accepting and allowing, and then another piece of it is this. Years ago, I learned this in a relationships workshop that I was attending, in fact, which is this. Let's imagine that a relationship is like a pendulum, and, an issue in a relationship is like a pendulum. So if one person in the relationship is being extremely responsible and controlling, then that's one side of the pendulum, right? And so the ball of the pendulum then is kind of swung way over to one side of the pendulum because that person's being so responsible and controlling. So what wants to happen in the pendulum? Remember, with the pendulum, it wants a state of ease, a state of balance. And so what happens then, if, let's say, the manager is being really controlling and demanding and responsible, then because the universe wants a balance, then that other person has to be more extreme in the other direction. I can't tell you how many managers, once they hear this, things start shifting. Now, it's not easy because they're so used to controlling. They're afraid, if I don't control, what's going to happen? But they can see it. It makes so much sense. Well, of course, if I'm going to be totally responsible, the other one, if I'm the manager, the other person, the people sense, well, if it doesn't turn out right, then they'll do something about it. So, so I'll just relax. They don't intentionally do that. It's an energetic thing. We just experience it. Well, they're so in control. Well, I'll let them be in control, and they'll tell me if I'm not doing something. So that's the other piece to it, is that we wind up teaching people, in fact, we teach people how to treat us. We wind up teaching people that if they're out of line or they're not performing, as we say in the workplace, that somebody will tell them about it and tell them to shape up and so on. Well, do we really, as managers or working with, or a coworker, want all that responsibility? No, we don't want that responsibility. We want to allow that person to thrive as well, to thrive and do so well. So then we want to relax, and then people will start stepping up. It might take a little time because people are used to the other dynamic, but over time people step up because they realize that they're not getting in trouble. And I think that's conditioned from when we're children. I read a book, The Continuum Concept, a few years ago, and they taught this woman, the author of the book, tells a story about being with an indigenous tribe, and there was a big clay pit in part of the land where the tribe lived, because they dug out clay to make pots. Well, one day this toddler was running around and was running toward the clay pit, and this author yelled, "Stop!" And everybody in the tribe looked around like, what is going on? And the woman said, well, this toddler is about to run into the pit. And the people said, well, why would he do that? It's because in the tribe, they allowed people to, and infants from the beginning, to express themselves, to go out on their own, because and they would find that the infants would go so far and then they'd come back, and then they'd go a little bit further another time and then come back. So they learned through their own sensing how far to go where they felt comfortable. They could keep they knew inherently that the child could sense it was getting to the edge of something and wouldn't go all the way. Well, in our culture, the parents take control of the toddlers. And so the toddler's running around in a room, and gets too close to a table, the parents say, "Stop!" So the child doesn't learn to trust its own instincts. So that came to me today as I was preparing for this, thinking, yeah, that's probably what happened. We learned it so young that somebody else will tell us when I've gone too far. So as adults, it takes a little while for us to rethink about and to create a new habit in that we then manage ourselves for being responsible and not waiting on the manager to tell me when I've gone too far, when I've made a mistake. So all that takes some time. It's a dance, but yet over the long haul, you're going to have a much more alive and enjoyable place to work. All right, let's see. And so also then other things that just happen when we're unconditionally accepting and allowing of other people, we're more relaxed, more open, more trusting, because that goes by definition. And we have more communication, more curiosity, more feeling like we're working together. So we be in a dance with them, we're discovering with them. Let's see, I'm going to pause here for a second and see if there are any comments. Okay, not right now. All right, so I'll come back to my notes, look at my notes, see if I'm covering everything. And another way to think about this as we as we work with others, and everything I'm saying here, of course, I'm sure you can hear this, applies in a family, applies with friends, colleagues, not just necessarily a manager, co-worker relationship, but colleagues. So we can remember that, well, what's most important here? Is it to control another person, to make sure I produce the exact results on time, or is it the relationship? To build the relationship with somebody else that over time, and it could be immediate, I mean, I've switched, when I managed a training company in New York City, I shifted finally when I realized all of this in a different context, but I realized the same thing. And I shifted my way of being and being with people, and results went up immediately when I wasn't trying to control the results. Yeah, I know. hard to believe for some of us. For me, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to let go of control here. I'm just going to love these people I work with and help them succeed at what they want to succeed at. And was really worried that we weren't going to produce the results I promised I would produce. But all of a sudden it got easier, and the results finally got produced. They weren't being produced when I was being controlling. Isn't that interesting? But as soon as I relaxed and said, oh well, I'm not getting the results this way, let me just relax with people, enjoy people, do all this, accept them, love them, appreciate them, relax around everything. Everything that I said here occurred, and our results, I finally produced the results that I'd promised. I mean, the team did, we all did, but as far as who was on the line for it, you know, it all came through. But what became more important was the relationships, the people, not the results. Results were a byproduct of caring deeply about the people with whom I worked. This is a little bit out of line, but I put it down here that another reason to be unconditionally accepting and allowing of other people, when we're not, and we're demanding, and they're supposed to perform for us and our results and our organization, then we hold people emotionally hostage. Then we're controlling them and demanding that they only get our approval, or that we'll only like them or care about them if they do these sorts of things. And so, you know, make the results and do it exactly right. And so they're we've got them held up. We've got them tied in a context of this dynamic that they're seeking our approval because we need them to seek our approval, and so it holds the whole all the emotions hostage that way. But when we're relaxed, then people aren't hostage anymore to us and what we need, and they're relaxed. They're relaxed, back to resiliency, back to psychological safety, back to wanting to perform. If I think I'm free to do well and will be appreciated no matter what, I will do better. I promise. I promise. All right, and I'll see if there are any comments or questions, and then we'll wrap it up. All right. So, so again, what we're talking about, how can we work with unconditional acceptance and allowing of each other? So rather than fearing that things will fall apart, if we accept and allow what is, then what we talked about is that you'll actually release resiliency, innovation, and flow, as well as psychological safety and high performance. Almost everything organizations are asking for these days. And then we talked about how to be unconditionally accepting and allowing. It's to remember, another piece of that, is to remember that we're all one being. We're all one being. I'm always talking to myself. And so in that context as well, creates much more openness, availability, energy, aliveness, creativity. And then how to release control and increase people being responsible is that we can remember that that our control actually keeps them less responsible. It's very paradoxical, but it's true for the most part. And so we release control by being in that allowing, accepting space and trusting. And again, you don't have to let everything fall apart. You know, if something's not going well, of course, you talk to people about it, but from an unconditional place of you're a human being, that something didn't go well. And so people really feel more available to want to create and resolve things when they don't feel like they're being controlled. And then people will actually be more responsible. All right, so one last check-in for questions or comments. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. I will let you know that we've got a free workshop on, oops, I don't have the name in front of me. I'll post it early next week. But on June the 13th at 11:30 Central. It's a little bit different than the ones I've done before. So even if you've attended everyone I've done, this one will be different. So I hope you'll join us June the 13th at 11:30, and I'll post the information next week. All right. Great being with you today. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.